The Necrons had lain buried in the sands of Cronus for eons, having retreated there at the end of a great war only hinted at in the histories of ancient races like the Eldar. Long before man even stood upright, the Necrons and their dark gods had retreated to their tomb worlds. But their slumber was not eternal. Eventually their genocidal deities awoke them again, driving them to purge the life that had spread across the galaxy during their sleep. On Cronus, this awakening came when an archaeological team opened a mysterious crypt on the arid Thor Abyss Plateau. Most of the team died, but expedition leader Thomas Maccabee somehow became one of the mysterious Necron pariahs. Seemingly retaining a hint of his personality, he occasionally spoke for the Silent Army as it advanced. The Necron Lord of Cronus, the most ancient and powerful of the deathless creatures on the planet, promptly launched a campaign of extermination. His loathsome god, the Nightbringer, hungered for the deaths of all those on Cronus. Imperial forces had faced Necrons before, notably on Lorn V and Verdus Prime, and it had cost the champions of man dearly each time. On Cronus, things only got harder, and when the Necron forces swept into Victory Bay, even the raw power of the revived Hellstorm cannon could not stop them. The Necrons showed cold contempt for the works of man, as they murdered the last tech priests and guardsmen in Victory Bay. With none left to fear them and none left to die, they simply moved on to the next conquest. The remains of the great Titan gun they ignored altogether, even its mighty power, paling in comparison to the galactic genocide their gods demanded. In the most ancient of Eldar myth cycles, there are tales of the Necrons' bloodthirsty deities clashing with the powers of the Warp. Thus, the Necron assault on the Chaos Stronghold was something of a reenactment of that prehistoric war. The merciless wave of the material Necrons clashing with the unbridled madness of the Immaterium. Despite black sorceries and the rage of foul demons, even the traitor Space Marines could not stop the unending tide of Necrons. The Nightbringer's servants remained in Deimos for some time after their victory, seemingly focused on purging the very soil there, which had been tainted by the power of the Warp. Necron Goss weaponry atomized every last Chaos Temple and artifact left, not to mention all the corpses and the unfortunates who survived the initial attack. By the time the Necrons moved to their next target, the peninsula had become a scorched desert of ash and dust. Two unrelenting tides crashed into one another as the Necrons moved into the Green Coast. Imperial citizens can be forgiven for rejoicing to see the barbaric Orcish horde face the merciless advance of the ancient Deathbringers. No matter who won, however, the cause of man suffered. And when the Necron scythe decapitated the Orc horde, it was only one step on their march of galactic extermination. Orcish hordes are notoriously difficult to eradicate, since the beasts reproduce at a phenomenal rate. Indeed, Cronus' jungle had been the domain of feral orcs long before Warlord Gorguts arrived. The Necrons, however, applied their murderous resoluteness here as well, and systematically purged the jungle, one step at a time. Millions of orcs ultimately perished, each death a pleasing sacrifice for the Nightbringer. the clash between the young Tau Empire and the ancient evil of the Necrons, antediluvian determination won out over youthful exuberance. For all the tactical skill of Commander Okais, the Necron wave was unstoppable, and they purged Asharis just as they had all other regions before it. The retreat of the Tau forces left the remaining civilian population of Asharis unprotected from the Necron purge. Once their cold-blooded slaughter completed, however, the Necrons simply abandoned the city and its surrounding communities to the ages. Automated vid systems still broadcast images from the desolate streets, the bleached bones of Tau, Kroot, and humans lying still in the ash-strewn streets. Even the elite of the Blood Ravens could not hold back the murderous advance of the Necrons. The Necrons answered the Space Marines' shouted benedictions with stoic silence and murderous blasts from their Gauss flares. The aliens were uninterested in any arcane secrets that might have been hidden in North Vandia, utterly ignoring the scorched ruins of the Blood Ravens' chapel there. Their gruesome warriors flensed the flesh from every Space Marine left on the planet, but left their holy battle armors and other relics to corrode in the harsh weather. Tragically, among the flesh reduced to particulate ash was the gene seed of those Space Marines, dealing a near-fatal blow to the chapter. By taking North Vandia, the Necrons defeated the Blood Ravens on Cronus. But by purging the genetic heritage of all those fallen battle brothers, they may well have destroyed the whole chapter. The Eldar had come to Cronus specifically to face the Necrons, and when the Deathless Army marched into Tyria, they got their chance. For all the lauded foresight of their Farseer, however, the Eldar were unable to stem the Necron tide and fell under the power of their weapons. The dreams of Craftworld Ulthwé came crashing down under the metallic heel of their ancient enemies. The Necrons directed much of their energy to destroying the various Wraithbone structures left by the Eldar. This eldritch material is said to emanate directly from the warp, which seems to have offended the Deathless Warriors even more than the existence of life. The thin spires built by the Eldar collapsed as Gauss flares and alien blades cut them into their atomic components. Only when the works of Farseer Taldir were blasted to nothing did the Necron tide move on. By the end of the Dark Crusade, Cronus was a tomb world once more. Just as the marching Necron armies cut down all their opponents, so did other fiendish devices work on the planet's very ecosystem. Scarab swarms scoured the lush jungles of the south and the fertile plains of the north, while pulses of loathsome energy killed even microscopic bacteria. The seas died and the air itself became rarefied and poisoned. Soon, sterile sand and dust swept across the Cronusian landscape, broken only by black monuments to the Nightbringer. Cronus became the black heart of the Necron purge in the eastern edge of the galaxy. Warriors emerging from the monoliths of Cronus would bring death to worlds across the Tau Empire, the domains of Ultramar, and many more sectors. Imperial strike fleets, Tau battle formations, and Eldar raiding teams would all try to retake Cronus, only to fall before the huge crypt vessels protecting the Tomb World from orbit. Each heroic effort only added more deaths to the Nightbringer's tally.